Flight MH370 Disappearance explained. March 8, 2014. A Boeing 777 carrying 239 people disappears from radar. No distress call, no wreckage, no answers. Years later, Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 remains one of the greatest aviation mysteries of all time. What really happened? The flight. In the early hours of March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport at 12:41 a.m. local time, bound for Beijing, China. On board were 239 people, 227 passengers, and 12 crew members, representing 14 different nationalities. It was supposed to be a routine red-eye flight, lasting just under 6 hours. For the first 40 minutes, everything appeared normal. The aircraft, a Boeing 777-200ER, climbed smoothly to cruising altitude and made its last verbal communication at 1:09 a.m., when the co-pilot calmly radioed air traffic control with, "Good night, Malaysian 370. 2 minutes later, as the plane was about to cross into Vietnamese airspace, its transponder went offline, and it disappeared from civilian radar. But behind the scenes, Malaysian military radar continued to track the aircraft. And what they saw was shocking. MH370 made a sharp turn to the left, flying back over the Malaysian peninsula and then heading northwest. It then made another turn, southward, into the vast, empty expanse of the southern Indian Ocean. And then, nothing. No distress calls. No mayday. No final message. The plane simply vanished into the night sky. Within hours, a massive international search and rescue effort was launched. More than 24 countries participated, using aircraft, ships, submarines, and satellites to search for any sign of the missing plane. The initial focus was on the South China Sea, but once the military radar data was analyzed, the search shifted west, then south, into one of the most remote stretches of ocean on the planet. In the days and weeks that followed, no wreckage was found. Families waited for answers that never came. The world was left in shock. How could a modern jetliner, equipped with tracking systems and flown by experienced pilots, just disappear? Then, more than a year later, a breakthrough. In July 2015, a piece of aircraft wreckage known as a flaperon washed up on the shores of Réunion Island, a remote French territory in the western Indian Ocean, thousands of kilometers from the original flight path. It was confirmed to be from MH370. In the years since, a few more fragments have turned up along coastlines in Mozambique, Madagascar, and Tanzania, including interior panels and engine parts. All match the missing aircraft. But the main fuselage, the cockpit, and, most importantly, the flight data and cockpit voice recorders have never been recovered. Despite search efforts covering over 120,000 square kilometers of seafloor and costing hundreds of millions of dollars, MH370 remains missing. Not a single confirmed clue has revealed what truly happened in those final hours. And that absence of wreckage, of records, of resolution is what turned a tragedy into one of the greatest aviation mysteries of our time. Theories. With little debris, no black box, and no distress signal, theories about what happened to MH370 have flourished. Some are grounded in technical analysis. Others venture into speculation. Here's a breakdown of the 4 leading theories. Theory 1. Mechanical failure. One of the earliest explanations was that MH370 suffered a catastrophic mechanical or electrical failure. Possibilities include an onboard fire, electrical short circuit, or loss of cabin pressure. Such an event could have incapacitated both pilots and passengers, leaving the aircraft flying on autopilot until it eventually ran out of fuel and crashed into the Indian Ocean. This ghost flight scenario is supported by the satellite data showing MH370 stayed in the air for hours after its last radar contact. It could explain the lack of communication. If the crew was overcome by smoke or hypoxia, they may never have had a chance to respond. But skeptics question one key issue. Why didn't the crew issue any kind of distress call? And how do we explain the deliberate and controlled turnback tracked on military radar? This leads into a more chilling possibility. Theory 2. Pilot involvement. Many investigators and aviation experts believe the most likely scenario is intentional action by someone in the cockpit, most notably Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah. An experienced pilot with over 18,000 flight hours, Zahari had a home flight simulator. Forensic analysis revealed he had simulated a similar flight path over the Indian Ocean weeks before the crash. This raised questions. Was he planning something? Was it a suicide mission, carefully designed to leave no trace? Supporters of this theory suggest the captain could have depressurized the cabin, causing the passengers and crew to lose consciousness, then flown the aircraft solo for hours before letting it crash into the sea. The fact that MH370 avoided radar coverage for much of its path may not have been a coincidence. Still, there's no concrete evidence of motive. Zahari left no note, no known grievances. Friends and family describe him as kind, passionate about flying, and not someone capable of such an act. But in the absence of proof, suspicions remain. Theory 3. Hijacking. When the plane first disappeared, many feared it had been hijacked, possibly as part of a terrorist plot. 2 passengers on board were found to be traveling with stolen passports, but they were later ruled out as threats. No known group ever claimed responsibility. No demands were made. No credible links to terrorism were ever found among the passengers or crew. A hijacking scenario also fails to explain the deliberate, radar-avoiding route the plane took, or the complete lack of communication. Most hijackings involve some form of contact or negotiation. MH370 had none. Theory 4. Government cover-up. In the wake of confusion and inconsistent communication from officials, some believe the truth about MH370 is being deliberately hidden. The theory suggests that certain governments, perhaps Malaysia, China, or even the US, withheld or manipulated radar and satellite data. Supporters point to delayed public disclosures, contradictory statements, and the fact that Inmarsat satellite data, used to calculate the flight path, wasn't shared in full right away. More extreme versions of the theory claim the aircraft may have been mistakenly shot down, intercepted, or redirected for reasons unknown. And the cover-up was launched to avoid scandal or diplomatic fallout. There's no solid proof of any conspiracy. But the secrecy and slow flow of information in the early days of the search fed public distrust. Where is MH370 now? Between 2015 and 2016, a series of debris fragments believed to be from Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 began washing up on distant shores, thousands of kilometers from the original flight path. The first confirmed piece, a flaperon from the wing of a Boeing 777, was discovered in July 2015 on the beach of Réunion Island, a remote French territory in the western Indian Ocean. The part was later officially verified by Boeing and international investigators as belonging to MH370. After that, additional fragments surfaced. In Mozambique, pieces of the horizontal stabilizer and other internal components were found. In Madagascar, local residents discovered parts believed to be cabin panels and engine casings. Some debris also appeared on the coasts of Tanzania, Mauritius, and South Africa. All of these locations fall within the Indian Ocean current drift patterns, supporting the theory that the aircraft crashed somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean, likely west of Australia. The ocean's powerful currents, paired with wind and time, likely carried the fragments thousands of kilometers before they reached land. Based on satellite handshake signals between the plane and Inmarsat's communications satellite, analysts identified a likely crash zone along what's known as the 7th arc, a sweeping curve that traces the possible final positions of the aircraft as it pinged the satellite hourly. The most extensive underwater search in aviation history followed. Between 2014 and 2017, Australia led a joint operation with China and Malaysia to search over 120,000 square kilometers of seabed near the suspected crash site. Using sonar-equipped ships, submersible drones, and deep-sea mapping tools, they scanned the ocean floor for any trace of wreckage. but the results were frustrating. No fuselage, no cockpit, no black boxes. Only silence. In 2018, a private U.S. company called Ocean Infinity launched a new search using a fleet of autonomous underwater vehicles. Their technology allowed for faster, more efficient scanning. But after several months, they too came up empty. So where is MH370 now? The leading theory remains that the aircraft lies somewhere on the ocean floor, possibly within a yet-to-be-scanned stretch of the southern Indian Ocean. But this region is among the most remote, deepest, and most geologically complex parts of the planet, with depths exceeding 6,000 meters, underwater mountains, and rugged terrain that can easily hide wreckage. Some experts believe the plane's final plunge may have left few large pieces intact. If it hit the water at high speed or a steep angle, it may have shattered, sending debris scattering widely and sinking fast. Others suggest the search area needs to shift, based on new drift modeling or reanalysis of satellite data. But until the flight data recorder or cockpit voice recorder is found, we may never know exactly where MH370 came to rest, or what really happened in those final silent hours over the sea. Why it still matters. More than a decade has passed since Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 disappeared, but the mystery still casts a long shadow over global aviation. Because MH370 wasn't just a tragedy, it was a wake-up call. The disappearance of a modern, GPS-equipped commercial airliner in 2014 shocked the world. In an age of smartphones, satellites, and 24/7 global connectivity, people asked the same haunting question: how can a 250-ton jet vanish without a trace? The reality exposed disturbing flaws in how the aviation world tracked flights over oceans and remote regions. For decades, aircraft have relied on radar and ground-based communication, but those systems don't extend across the vast, uninhabited parts of the globe. When MH370 lost contact over the sea, there was no automated backup, no real-time GPS tracking, no emergency data transmission, no way to know exactly where it went or why. Even the aircraft's black boxes, designed to survive crashes, were never recovered. Without them, investigators can only theorize. And for the families of the 239 people on board, that uncertainty is unbearable. Parents, spouses, and children are still waiting for answers, still holding on to hope, or at least the truth. In the aftermath of MH370, there was a global push for reform. The International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, introduced new safety standards requiring aircraft to report their position every 15 minutes and every minute during distress. Airlines began adopting satellite-based systems like ADS-B, Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast, allowing real-time global tracking, even over oceans. Emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and autonomous search vehicles are now being developed to improve emergency response and wreckage recovery. These changes are reshaping the future of aviation safety, and much of it was sparked by the loss of MH370. But for many families and critics, these changes came too late. The systems meant to prevent a second MH370 only arrived after 239 lives were lost, and no full accountability was ever found. The pain goes deeper than policy. MH370 became more than a missing plane. It became a symbol of how, even in the most advanced age of human flight, we're still vulnerable to the unknown. It exposed the gaps not only in our technology, but in our transparency, our communication, and our compassion for those left behind. Even now, annual vigils are held around the world. Memorials stand in Malaysia, Australia, and China, and online communities of amateur investigators continue poring over data, satellite images, and theories, because the desire for closure hasn't faded. For aviation experts, MH370 is a lesson. For families, it's a wound. And for the world, it's a reminder that in the sky above us, there's still mystery, and that even one unanswered flight can change everything. Flight MH370 didn't just disappear from radar, it vanished from the modern world's sense of certainty. And that's what makes it so haunting. Subscribe for more true mysteries, only on Discover the Truth.